Welcome back to Lattes and Llamas Knitting Academy. Today we'll be discussing Judy's Magic Cast-On, best used for toe-up socks. Let's talk materials. I'm using Lattes and Llamas Vacation yarn. This colorway is called Plastic Pumpkins and is a sock yarn. If you're trying this technique for the first time, you may want to use some worsted or chunky weight yarn to practice. I'll be using US 1.5 2.5 millimeter 40-inch circular needles to work in magic loop. This technique can be done with DPNs, and if you're using worsted or chunky weight yarn to practice, you'll want to use the needle size recommended on the ball band. All right, now let's get on to Judy's magic cast-on method. If my free pattern, Untitled Goose Socks, brought you here, you'll want to consult the pattern to see how many stitches you need to cast on for your size. I'll be casting on 16 stitches for size 2. So first, you'll want to leave yourself a bit of a tail and make a slip knot. Then, put that slip knot on one of your needles. This will count as your first stitch. The tail end should come from the top, and the working yarn should come from the bottom. Now organize the yarn in your hands, kind of like you're doing a long tail cast on or slingshot cast on. You see here, we have our needles together. So since we have this first stitch on here, what we're going to do is do the bottom one. So you'll bring it around and down. So basically what's happening here is the top one is going to be the bottom, and the bottom will be for the top, and you're always going to want to bring the yarn from the outside in. So same thing, outside in, outside in, outside in, like so. And sometimes I just kind of get lost doing the stitches and then count after I feel like I've done enough, and then probably pull off a few because I got carried away. Because I just sit here and I chant outside in, outside in. If you need 16 stitches for your cast on like I did, you should now have 8 stitches on each needle. Once you've casted on the appropriate number of stitches for the pattern you're working on, go ahead and turn your needles. So what we're going to want to do now is we're going to take the working yarn and cross it over the tail here, tail, to catch that yarn. So pull this out so it's this way. We're going to go ahead and knit that first stitch. See how it's pulling here? Right. So we're going to go ahead and knit across. It's definitely fiddly the first time you do it. I highly recommend doing this with some waste yarn first, with bigger needles and thicker yarn until you get the hang of it. Or just jump in feet first like I do with everything. Caution to the wind. Oh, she's tight like a tiger. Okay. Now we're going to knit the other side, but we're not going to knit it like normal because all of these stitches are now twisted. So you're going to want to knit into the back loop, or back leg, I guess. Would be more technical. All right, we're going to give this a little tug at the end. Okay, so if you're working the Untitled Goose Socks, you've just done the cast on in round 1. And for the Untitled Goose Socks, round 2 is an increase round. For round 2, we're going to turn our needles. And for the Untitled Goose Socks, we're going to knit one in the front and back for that first stitch. Knit one, and then without sliding it off, you're going to knit into that back leg of the stitch like you just did on the other side. Pull it off. Boom. 2 stitches. And for the Untitled Goose Socks, we're going to knit to the end, to 2 stitches before the end. Now we're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to knit one into the front and then into the back. Voila, 2 stitches increased. Now for the next side. And this will go much the same way. Except now we want to make sure that this is getting a little tighter. So we're knitting into the front and the back. Slide this off our needles and give a little tug downwards. And continue on to 2 stitches before the end. Knit into the front and back. Voila, row number 2. The next round for the Untitled Goose Socks is exactly the same. It's another increase round, but I like to do a tricksy little thing here where instead of clipping off this end, as part of weaving it in to keep it nice and secure, I cross the yarns right here. I'm going to work one of these rounds with the tail. I find it to be more economical and more secure when I weave it in later. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to knit into the front and back. Of course, I pulled it too tight. There we go. And knit until there's 2 left on this needle. knit to the front and back. Then we'll turn and do the same thing. Knitting into the front and back. All right. The next round is another increase round, and we're going to do the same exact thing that we just did at the beginning of this one, is we're going to cross these two yarns so they catch. And we're going to use our working yarn, because this tail is getting a little too short to take risks anymore. So part of the way I secure my yarn is I do kind of a color work method of catching your yarn. So now I'm going to take the tail, cross it over like that to catch it, and knit the stitch. Do it again, but the other direction. So we'll take it over, catch the yarn there, and knit. Bring it over again, and knit. And just kind of go ahead and work to the end like normal. Take a quick second here before I continue on to the other side to trim it. And there we have it. That is your Judy's Magic cast on for your toe. And keep going, and one day it'll grow up and look something like that. Ta-da!